Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Dr. Mark Hicks. He's an author, ghostwriter, speaker, counselor, and relationship specialist, and his passion lies in unraveling the mysteries of love and relationships, digging deep into what makes them tick. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mark.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Dr. Mark. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn about how to build healthy, lasting relationship. But before this, let's understand a bit about your journey, about your background, so that our audience knows who they are listening to.
Yes, I came to write my book really from three paths. One is I am a counselor. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling. And in the area of counseling, almost everything we deal with has to do with relationships, whether it's at home, at work, in our life, in our neighborhood, wherever it is. Most of the problems we have come back to the relationships we have in our life, at least the relationship we have with ourselves. And so that is one path that led me into thinking a great deal about relationships. I also have a background in spirituality and theology, and this also deals a great deal with relationships, relationship with God, relationships with one another. And then my third path was really my personal experience. I did not always know what I know now. When I was young, I ended up in a very toxic first marriage. It was a very bad experience. Ended in divorce. And from that, I really started to wonder, is love possible? What is love? How do we build relationships of love? And that question really began to push me in this area. And from those three areas, from my personal experience, from being a counselor, and from my spiritual and theological experience, I came to write my book, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters, and Healthy Relationships That Last. And these are relationships in every area, because while our work relationships, those relationships with our coworkers, are very different than what we would have with our family or our spouse, for example, the principles of building those relationships are the same. And so that's what I teach in my book. I teach how to have relationships that are healthy, happy, and thriving in every area, because love is a learned skill set. It's not just by chance. It's not mystery. It is a learned skill set that anyone can learn, even if you've been through a divorce, even if you've been through abuse, through trauma, dysfunctional family. You can still learn the basic core components of what love is and how to practice them.
Right, right, Dr. Mark. We'll come to your book. But if I ask you during this episode, what did you learn about love? Is love for everyone? Is it about past karmas? Is it about present? Is it about skills? What is it all about? And
Love
can love translate into long-lasting relationship? Can you work around that?
it can develop into long-lasting relationships, and that's what it's really intended to be. Now, not every relationship can be long-lasting. There are some relationships that do have to end. We're not meant to be abused. And so if we are in an abusive relationship, toxic relationship, that does need to end. But the hope is, and the reality is, we can build healthy, long-lasting relationships and develop the skill to do that. So often we think that uh, love is simply an emotion, and that is an important part of it. I don't want to discount that. It's a very important part of love, but it's not the only part of love. There are other realities and components of love that we can learn and practice in our life to build those relationships. And so the message that I always hope to get across is that we shouldn't give up on love, even if we've been through difficult times, because love is that learned skill set that anyone can learn and practice to build the relationships you want.
Right, right, Dr. Mark. So, how does you can learn skills, you can know about yourself. How do you know that the other person knows about it the same way you are seeing? And do you need to educate the other person before falling in love, especially if you have not had a good relationship earlier on?
I do think it's very important to talk about that with someone you are developing a relationship with. If you are falling in love, if you're thinking about a long-term romantic relationship or marriage, then yes, absolutely talk about what love is and how to build that and what you understand love to be. And I certainly hope to be a part of that conversation with my book. I hope I can help a lot of people have that conversation of what love is. In my book, I teach 5 components of love. And this is a way people can conceptualize and talk about their relationship, talk about what's working and what's not. So often, love seems like it's a million moving parts and how do we maneuver all of these things? But when we get to the 5 core components of love, we can look very carefully at what is happening in our life and say, this area is working pretty well. This component seems to be working fine for us, but this is a component we need to work on. And that's the encouraging thing. We don't need to be discouraged when we have tough times in a relationship. If we understand the components of love, we can use that to have those conversations and to know exactly what we need to be working on to build that healthy relationship.
Right, Dr. Mark. So please tell us about these 5 components of love. But before that, you talk about the most misunderstood aspect of love. So first, the misunderstood part, and then the 5 components of love.
The most misunderstood is actually the first component. The first component of love is grief. And that does surprise a lot of people. And that's very rarely understood because we do think about love in terms of being, bubblegum and butterflies. Everything is sweet and beautiful. And that is part of it. That's an important part. But grief is also an important component of love because life is difficult. And no one gets through this life without scars. Everyone's going to have tough times. Everyone's going to be hurt at times. And if we don't understand the process of grief, we will have a tendency to put up emotional barriers, to put up walls around our heart, around our mind, our spirit, and push people away trying to protect ourselves. And that is not a way to build healthy relationships. And so the first thing we need to understand, the first component of love, is to understand how to grieve, to come back from those tough times, particularly if we have experienced trauma or abuse or were raised in a very dysfunctional family where we weren't taught what love is. We never really experienced love in a real way as a child. We need to understand that grief is our comeback story and that we may have terrible tragedies, terrible trauma in our life. And it's when we experience that kind of pain, it can be like we have a hole in our heart, but you can live a really good life with a hole in your heart. And that's what I hope people understand. We can't fix the past. We can't change the past. But even with those emotional scars, even with that hole in our heart, we can go on to live a good life, to have connections, to have love, have healthy relationships. And that comes when we know how to grieve and heal from those losses. Grief is a healer. It's not something to be avoided, even though it hurts terribly. It's a very difficult experience. It is a healer that brings us back into those relationships. So the most understood, but the first component of love is grief.
Absolutely. What about the other person? How do you ensure that you are getting into a right sort of relationship and that you are fine, but what about the other person? How would you know that person is fine for you?
Yeah. It does take time. I always say that love is a practice, that it is a learned skill set, but it is always a practice. And we should take time with them. Uh, of course, we can develop an emotional attachment very quickly. And that is the second component of love. I don't discount emotion. Emotion is a very important part. It is the second component of love, grief being the first, emotion the second. And it's a very powerful part of love, but it's not the only one. And so we don't need to fall headlong in love, getting caught up in all the emotion of it. While that's a very exciting time, it also takes time to process the other components of love that I'll talk about in just a moment. And understanding where that other person is in their process of love. And maybe they have some grief they need to deal with so that they can lower their barriers and love you the way they need to. All this is a process. And I encourage people to seek counseling or coaching, or find a therapist, find someone that can help you, because we go to a doctor for our physical health and we go to a dentist for our teeth. We'll see a car mechanic when our car is not running well. We hire lawyers, we hire plumbers, we hire lots of professional people to help us in life. Why would we not ask a professional to help us with our emotional health, our mental health, and our relationships? And so having a counselor, a relationship coach involved in your life and in your relationships can not only ensure you're making progress towards a healthy relationship, but that your partner is as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, let's learn from your book, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters and Healthy Relationships That Last. So, this book is coming out, if I understand, next year. Tell us a bit about this book. Who is
It
this book for?
it is coming out in June of 2025. It is published by Morgan James Publishers, a New York publishing firm. Wonderful folks to work with at Morgan James. The pre-orders will be available soon, and I certainly hope people will go to my website, markahicks.com, and look at pre-orders. I also have on my website a free ebook. Since the book is not coming out until June, I want people to have these 5 components of love and be able to begin working with those. And so I have a free ebook on my website that people can download before the book comes out. But I'm very excited that Morgan James is publishing this, that will be available in June of 25.
Right, right, Dr. Mark. So, who is this book for? There are lots of people in this world, in relationships, their trust is broken. And when their trust is broken, many a times they find it difficult to trust the other person, even if it's a very good person. Forget about others. They start doubting themselves, mistrusting their own judgments about things. Have you dealt that in your book?
Absolutely. And trust is actually part of the third component of love, which is practicality. We have certain practical realities in love. It's not just emotion, even though, as I said earlier, emotion is very important. We have to do the practical things. And sometimes practicality means we have to take the time to learn to trust again, or to earn the trust of someone. And trust has to be both given and earned at the same time. It's a balancing act. It's a little dance that we have to do. We can't just give love or give trust blindly. That's a good way to get hurt. If we trust everyone blindly, there are some bad people in the world. That's sad to say, but it's a reality. And so we can't just trust blindly. However, if we never give trust to allow someone to earn it, there's no way for someone to earn our trust if we aren't willing to give at least a measure of it. If we distrust them, we put up our barriers and we watch them every moment of every day, there's no way they can earn our trust without some allowance to earn it. And so it's a balancing act of giving, but not too much, allowing people to earn that trust over time, but giving them the ability to earn it by showing some trust. And so we give and earn that trust simultaneously within a relationship, and it grows over time. Trust is sort of organic. It grows like an organic thing within us that over time can develop into something uh, that is very powerful and ironclad. But that doesn't come in the beginning. We allow that to grow, and that's a practical reality. It doesn't mean that you don't love someone if you are taking time, especially early in a relationship, or if there has been a broken trust and you want to restore that relationship. It takes time. You can still love them. You can still have an emotional attachment, but you may have to grieve that first component of love. If there has been a broken trust, that will take some time. And then it takes time to build that trust back, both giving and earning simultaneously.
Absolutely. What about, healthy relationships? What is the sign of a healthy relationship? How do you know that relationship is becoming unhealthy for you?
Yeah. Healthy relationships have one real very important key, and that is the fourth component of love, which is loving yourself first. Some people think that if someone else loves me, or if enough people love me, I can be validated and then love myself. It sounds logical, but it doesn't work that way. We have to love ourselves first. Brene Brown has written a lot about this and done some wonderful research on this, among other people, but she's very noted for it at this time. Uh, we have to love ourselves first. You cannot love someone more than you love yourself. And so, if you want to measure your ability to have healthy relationships, discover how much you love yourself. That will be your limit. And if you want to know if someone else has the ability to love you, look at how much they love themselves. That will be their limit. And people very much misunderstand this and believe that, if I can love that person and we can build enough of a great relationship because I love them so much. Yes, it's important to love them, but they have to love themselves in order to love you back. There has to be that connection there that starts with us, because love is not a commodity like money. Love is organic. If you need more money, there's lots of ways to get that. You can get a second job. You can borrow money, perhaps from a family friend, or you can take out a loan from a financial institution. There's lots of ways to acquire money. Love is not like that. It is organic. It has to be grown within us. So we can only give away what we have within us to give. And that is how much we love ourselves. So if you want to measure the health of your relationship, look at how much you love yourself. That's how much love you can give. And look at the relationship a person has with themselves, the people in your life. Are they loving themselves, treating themselves well? That's going to be their capacity to love you back.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's much to learn about all these things about love, trust, and long-lasting relationships, and also so much to learn from your book. So, what's the best way for them to connect with you, learn from you, learn about your book, get your book, pre-book your book?
The best way to be in touch with me is my website. It is markahicks.com. Make sure you get my middle initial in there, markahicks.com. There you'll find the opportunity for pre-orders for my book coming out in June. You'll find my free ebook that you can download. Also, I have a contact form there. I'm available as a speaker, both in person and virtually online. I also am available for coaching. I do workshops, and I would be very happy for folks just to contact me and say hi and let me know that they saw me on your show.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.